Hello and welcome to the 65th episode of the Accountant's Success Secrets podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Mark Lee of Bookmark Lee. I'm a mentor, speaker and debunker.
And I'm Philippa Haynes of Insight 101, supporting you to stand out. Each week on the podcast, we showcase another experienced accountant or bookkeeper who we think can inspire and encourage other accountants and bookkeepers in practice around the UK.
We both recognise that every accountant and bookkeeper is unique and distinct. They have different backgrounds, experiences and reasons for starting and building their practices.
Yep, so we asked them to share their stories, including the highs, the lows, and what they have learned along the way. We look to explore what makes them different in terms of their background, their successes, their failures, and their focus.
Our aim is to provide some fundamental insights for others like you, our loyal listener. And if you'd like to share your story in a similar way, do please get in touch with Philippa or me. We're now looking for guests for September, although we have one date, I think, at the end of August.
Oh, right. Goodness me. Time flies, doesn't it? So today is our 53rd interview. We're delighted to introduce Noel Guilford, no D, who founded Guilford Accounting, still no D in the name, based in Chester back in 2002. And I know Chester very well. Noel originally qualified as the chartered accountant at Arthur Andersen before moving to what is now Deloitte, where he was a corporate finance partner. Now he's passionate about small businesses and how they can use their business numbers to drive their marketing strategy. Good one. He outsources work he doesn't enjoy or isn't best at, such as bookkeeping, payroll, and tax.
Welcome, Noel. What would you like to add before we get into the interview?
Good morning, Mark. Good morning, Philippa. No, that was quite a comprehensive introduction. Thank you. I suppose the only thing that I'd add to that is that in addition to my practice as largely with small businesses, I also help mentor young accountants who are starting out in the profession, and that's something that I've been doing for the last few years, which I very much enjoy.
Oh, that's great. Really like that. Good. I hope we'll hear more about that in a minute. But just before we do, we better thank our sponsor of our podcast, Pinnacle Global Group, the trusted offshoring partner to over 150 accounting and bookkeeping firms across the UK and Ireland, led by London-based chartered accountant Mayank Pandya. With offices in London and Mumbai and a team of over 300 professionals, Pinnacle provides both compliance resourcing from accountants, bookkeepers and payroll admins to tax and audit associates. Value-added support including management accountants, virtual finance controllers, financial analysts and more. Whew. They're GDPR compliant, ISO certified, covered by professional indemnity insurance, and offer flexible models, full-time, part-time, or pay as you go. You can even start with a trial period to join their sponsored trip to Mumbai to meet the team in person. Find out more at www.pinnacleoss.co.uk or click the link wherever you're listening to this podcast.
Also supporting the podcast is the Tax Advice Network. Their website enables accountants to choose specific specialist tax advisors for general tax support or for help across any of over 100 areas of tax. It's free to use. You just pay the tax advisor you choose after agreeing terms with them. Go take a look at their website, findataxadvisor.online, where you can also register to get their weekly tax tips, which are written especially for general practitioner accountants.
Great. Now back to Noel. As you know, we aim to keep the podcast to around 30 minutes. We do that by focusing the discussion on a few key questions.
And I'll go first. So let's just go back to the start, Noel, briefly, because of course, a bit like me, it was a long time ago.
How dare you?
How and why did you come to set up your own accounting practice? And how did you get your first clients?
Well, it's nearly 25 years ago. And prior to that, I'd had a relatively long career, nearly another 25 years, having started when I was still a teenager, when I did an internship and then went off to university to read accountancy, joined Arthur Anderson, whose training was fantastic. And then I was lucky enough to be asked by a firm called Spicer and Pegler. Again, so no
I
longer
love that
exists.
name. It's brilliant.
Eventually went into BDO, if I recall.
Well, no, in fact, it went to Deloitte.
Oh, right,
because
okay.
It was in 1990. Deloitte weren't called Deloitte then; they were called Touche Ross. But what is now Deloitte was then, and they took over Spicer and Pegler. I was the managing partner of the office in Chester, which I'd set up a few years earlier. But Deloitte only wanted large offices, so they closed a number of the Spicer and Pegler offices. I became a partner in the Liverpool office, Northwest Liverpool and Manchester, which is where I practiced corporate finance for a few years. I must admit that wasn't the most enjoyable part of my career. And so I realized after a few years that I was better off running my own practice. And I started that really because I realized by then that most smaller businesses weren't really getting the service and the information from their accountants that was valuable to them. And so again, it's no surprise that most or many small businesses, in my experience, aren't great at financial literacy. And some don't even see that as being a problem. But those that do recognize that they need help. So I set about creating a practice that would provide what I consider to be the information that is useful to smaller businesses to enable them to grow. So not just backward looking, but also forward looking. Back in the early 2000s, we didn't have all the automation and software that we do today, but we created a business where every client would have up-to-date books. They would get a monthly report from us, and we would have a monthly meeting with them discussing their business and the business opportunities and how they can improve their business performance. So it was a practice that was aimed at helping small businesses grow, and that's where I've always got my most enjoyment and fun, and so that's what I still do today.
Right. How is? Sorry, go on, Mark.
All right. How did you get your first clients, Noel?
I had a network. Having been when I set up, I had a good friend who was a marketing consultant, and she said, "What are you going to call your practice?" And I said, "Well, I haven't really decided yet." And she said, "Well, what about your name? How well known are you?" And I said, "Well, a lot of people know me. I've been practicing in the Northwest all my life." So she said, "Well, use your name." And so that was how it became. That was as simple as that. How it became Guilford Accounting. And yeah, I just started with my network, with my contacts. You see, 10 years previously, I'd set up the Spicer and Pegler practice in Chester.
Yes.
And so I'd already set up one practice previously. So writing articles, speaking, those are the sort of things that I just picked up and started doing again, and very much enjoy.
Right. So how have things changed then? Because obviously you've been doing this a while, and we all know that the world has changed, accounting has changed, technology has really come racing in. In terms of where you are now versus where you were when you started, what any differences?
Yes, I would say there are a lot of differences. If I'm honest, when I started, I think I made one of the biggest mistakes that most accountants make, which was to take on too many of the wrong type of client. And I very quickly learned. I very quickly learned that I needed to have a very clear idea of my ideal client, Although, as I said before, my experience was that a lot of small businesses lacked the detailed knowledge of their financial information, KPIs, and so on. I assumed that because a lot of them needed that type of support, that they would want it. I very quickly learned that not all of them want it, and so we built a very, what I consider to be thorough discovery call process. We go through quite a lengthy process before we take on a new client. It's probably true to say we probably say no to more clients than we say yes to once we've had our discovery call. We're quite demanding of the clients we take on. We see it very much as a two-way agreement, and so for example, they must be on cloud accounting. We only use Xero now. We did in the early days allow clients to, if they came to us from another platform, to stay with that platform, but we quickly decided that wasn't sensible. So all our clients now have to use Xero. They still have our monthly management report. We also now, each client, we've worked with them to identify what their key business metrics are. So they get a dashboard with those results each month. And we then have a monthly meeting. And their side of the agreement is that they provide us with all the necessary information, that if they don't keep up their bookkeeping up to date, then they use one of our bookkeepers so that their information is always up to date. We annually we produce, or help them produce, a budget and cash flow forecast. We use an integrated model for that, which produces cash flow, balance sheet, and P&L accounts, obviously. And one of the things we learned quite early on was that a lot of business owners didn't realize how valuable their cash flow statement is. They didn't get it, or they don't get it from their existing accountants, because it's not part of the statutory accounts that accountants prepare for small businesses. So a cash flow statement is always part of our monthly report. And I always emphasize to clients that probably the most useful number in their financial statements is the net operating cash flow figure. And a lot of them say, when they start with them, what's that? Where will I find it? And so we work very much on the basis that, because we've got clients who now want to learn, want to grow, want to develop themselves personally as well as just grow their businesses, that we perform the role very much of their, I suppose, I mentioned mentoring new accountants. I suppose we mentor a lot of our clients, because we help them to perhaps see the potential in their business that perhaps sometimes they don't see, and that is then reinforced by having information. And I mentioned before, we're always anxious to encourage clients to be looking forward rather than just back. Again, I think too many accountants produce information that's historic and out of date, not particularly useful. Whereas if you use the information, the current information, and then look and see what that's telling you about where the business is going, where you can improve, and so on. And the last few years, given the technology, and I suppose this is one of the biggest changes, Philippa. I mean, for example, I mentioned we use Xero. We use the tracking function in Xero quite extensively to help clients monitor their gross margin. So I've got one client who actually started with me from scratch 10 years ago. She's now got a business where she's got maybe 50, I think about 50 clients who her team provides services to. Each month we produce a KPI report for her, which is the gross margin on each of those clients. So she monitors the gross margin individual on each of 50 clients, and we sit down each month and we go through that report and we look at those where the margin's low or the margin's dipped, and make sure that there's an understanding. And what's interesting in that business, since we're doing that, her gross margin overall used to be around probably 37, 38%, and it's now up at 43, 44%. So, I mean, which is a significant increase when, of course, that 5% additional revenue falls right down to the bottom line. And I mean, it's only by monitoring those sort of metrics and then taking action to improve them that you see that benefit in the business. And I mean, that's where I get the most pleasure, because seeing a business owner who can understand the information that they're getting, interpret it in a way that means that they can then take action to improve the business, that's very rewarding. And I guess it's why I still do what I do.
I absolutely love that, Noel. And with those monthly meetings, I'm reminded that when I looked at your website earlier, you have the what I like, the 3-tier pricing model that's on there, with your starting from fees in each case. But I get the impression that there's a minimum sort of turnover, a minimum size of business that's likely to afford those sort of fees. Do you have some sort of criteria in mind in that regard?
No, I don't. We don't characterize clients on the basis of size or turnover. As I say, quite a number of my clients started with me when they were just starting out. Mm-hmm. And we don't see it as being a level of turnover or number of employees or anything like that. What we do see is that a client needs to understand or needs to want the help. And so typically a client, I mean, our average fee is probably only somewhere in the region of £3,000 to £5,000 a year.
Only £3,000 to £5,000 a year. That's a heck of a lot more than many small accountancy.
Well, it's a very good point, Mark. What I was going on to say was that we take the view that if we don't add more value than that, then it's not a client that we can really, or they can afford us, or we can afford to help. And so it is all a question, I think, of providing value. And quite often those monthly meetings move way beyond just talking through their management report or their metrics. And I had a conversation with one client last week, and probably an hour and a half of it was us talking about marketing pillars that she could undertake to enhance the business. That business had plateaued a little. It was still doing very well, but it plateaued a little. And we talked through a number of things that she could do. I mean, one of which, interestingly, was podcasting. But that, often we, as I said before, what I try and do is think about the client's business in a way that hopefully they're thinking about it and how they can grow. But to answer your question about the 3 tiers, I work on the basis that a client should get 3 things when they contract with us. They should get choice, and that means the different levels of service. They should get certainty, and that is that they should know exactly what their fees are going to be, which means that we don't bill by the hour. We don't have hourly rates. We don't keep timesheets. We don't even know really how much time we're spending on a particular client because we've agreed a fixed fee with them, but those fees are billed and collected monthly. We don't have any. We never have work in progress or debtors, and so we and then the third element is a guarantee that we guarantee that what we will do for them will deliver more value than the amount they're paying for, or else we will pay them the difference. So clients know exactly where they stand, and it means that we don't charge, for example, for phone calls, emails, so they can contact us whenever they want, however they want. I mean, these days, you asked the question, Philip, how things have changed. I've got one client who only ever contacts me with voice notes on WhatsApp. And that's the way he likes to communicate. And so
you've got used to that.
we've got to accommodate the way that they work. He's always in his car, he's always driving, and he says, "Oh, no, I just thought I'd drop you a note while I'm off to see so and so." But that works well for him. Other clients prefer the telephone, other clients prefer email. Fortunately, the technology these days means that we can accommodate however clients like to communicate.
Can I just pick up on something? So, because my beady marketing ear came in. So you were talking to a client about their marketing pillars. Now, that may be a normal thing for you, but it isn't a normal thing for most accountants. So where have you got this kind of knowledge from?
Well, I was very fortunate that when I was a partner at Spicer & Pegler, they paid for their younger partners, as I was then, to attend. And I've got a marketing diploma from Cranfield. That was just the start. I then realized that just having a few of the numbers wasn't enough. I needed to have a broader view of businesses and where they're going. And so I talk to clients. I mean, I tell clients that marketing is about two things. It's about creativity and business maths, because marketing is all very well, but if you're not measuring and monitoring your return on your marketing investment, so you know what you're getting from Google, what you're getting from Facebook, what you're getting from podcasts, what your website's delivering. So all of those things are important metrics that we monitor so that clients have a detailed knowledge of how their different marketing pillars are performing.
Brilliant. Yeah.
I love that. You weren't expecting that, were you, Philippa?
No, but I mean, and I love to hear it. I mean, everything you've said is deeply reassuring, and I guess from a value perspective, what you bring, it's actually, as you said, it's much bigger than that monthly fee or annual fee or whatever. Is you've got a very rounded business perspective, and that marketing nous is obviously a really good thing to have as an accountant, because you can go through and really start to support them, can't you, with what's happened, what's working and what isn't. So
yeah, I've been very fortunate.
Beyond just the numbers, which is crucial.
Yeah, I've been very fortunate in my career. If I look back, nearly 50 years since I joined Arthur Andersen in the 70s, and I've done a variety of things. I've worked in this country, I've worked abroad, I've worked for large firms, I've worked small firms, I've worked in specialist areas like corporate finance. I feel very fortunate, and because when you've had that level of experience and you've got that level of knowledge and expertise, I feel that it's really my responsibility to share that. And if I don't have a lot of clients deliberately, I keep my number of clients I work for quite small, because they do get a lot of attention from me. But of the clients I do have, I feel that if I can share some of the knowledge and experience that I've gained in my career, then that's a good way to round off my career, perhaps, put it that way. Not that I'm looking to retire anytime soon.
No, it's good.
It's very rewarding. I can relate to all of that. And although I charge for my mentoring services to experienced accountants, and I don't look to mentor startups and those just starting out with the practice, I'll always offer them a little bit of advice here and there. And now I know I can add you to the list of people who may be in a good place to help them. And I'll very happily do that.
It's interesting. We've got a trainee bookkeeper who's been listening in, studying her for AATs, Emma Louise, and she's just starting her networking and journey generally. So I think she's learning quite a lot here.
I would imagine so. No, what would you say you've really learned along the journey that's helped you get where you are now, beyond this sort of obligation to help others?
Oh, wow. Well, I mentioned before that I made loads of mistakes when I started out, and I hope I've learned from those. One of them is to be very particular about the clients you take on. You can't help everybody, even though they might need it, they don't necessarily want it. So I always talk to new accountants about there being two types of clients, what I call transactional clients and relational clients. Transactional clients are interested in the price, they're interested in what they can get. Relational clients are interested in how you can build that relationship and help to grow their business. So that it's the relational client that you look for. Quality over quantity. I would always go for fewer clients. Again, I see a lot of accountants, friends of mine, who take on too much, and that isn't a good thing for them or for their clients. And so I always work on the basis that less is more. Automate early and keep your technology up to date. It's ever changing. I mean, as we sit here today, agentic AI is going to be taking over a lot of what we do from a compliance point of view. I was talking to a client the other day. I said, well, just imagine when your agentic AI is receiving a supplier invoice, checking that invoice, emailing the client if it's got any queries, posting that into your cloud accounting, paying the bill, and you don't have to touch anything. And that's where we're moving to with technology. And the businesses that embrace that and recognize that that's the sort of efficiency that they can get from technology and build that into their practices, then that's very definitely a way that we're going. Charge what you're worth. That's the other thing I would say. Again, I know pricing is always an issue for accountants. I think too often we're tempted to underprice to take on a client, whereas that doesn't benefit anybody in the long term. And so make sure you know what you're worth and charge accordingly. There are plenty of businesses, plenty of clients out there who will pay you what you're worth, is another one. Make sure you spend time on your marketing. Again, one of the things that I learned early on is that it's a little and often. So I try and spend at least an hour a day thinking about marketing. We have a weekly email newsletter that goes not just to clients but to all our list. But each week we're putting something in front of our clients. They're not sales emails. We're not selling to them. I mean, there's always obviously a call to action, because anybody in marketing will tell you must include your call to action. But we're passing on knowledge. We're passing on information, and so we make time. We make time for that. Outsource to freelancers, as I said before. I have a mantra that's I try and only do what only I can do. And so if I think there's somebody who can do it better than I, and bookkeeping is a good example. My bookkeepers are brilliant. They're much better than I am or would be at bookkeeping. Again, bookkeeping is a specialism, just as accounting is a specialism. I see accountants try to do bookkeeping who really aren't that very good at it, and so the bookkeeping gets out of date or it's not done properly. So outsourcing to people who can do the job better than you can, and then you can focus on the things that you're good at.
Great.
That's wonderful. I think we could listen to you sharing more tips like that forever, but unfortunately we have to draw things to a close. You've been a fabulous guest, as imagined that you would be. Philippa, do you want to sum up anything in particular that you think was particularly unique about Noel and Guilford Accounting?
I think where can I start? Well, I mean, being a sort of marketing brand person myself, I should probably identify that part of the mix, because I think there are still very few accountants who have that kind of grounding, that marketing expertise. And I don't mean, go on social media and sort of jump around. I mean, having the real kind of proper foundational skills. And I suppose from the 30 minutes of talking to you, your business feels very kind of sturdy, very secure, anybody who comes to you, I think, will have a very rounded view of their business, and you'll add a lot of value. That would be my penneth. What about you, Mark? What's your?
I love the honesty and the evident experience in everything that Noel was sharing there. I suspect we will talk in more detail when we reflect back on this podcast in episode 67, which is just 2 or 3 weeks away now, because there's so much to take away and absorb there, so much valuable advice, Noel. And I think in particular the help that you can provide to those starting in practice or thinking about starting in practice, that's wonderful too. How can listeners who want to find out more about you get in touch, Noel? What's the best way for them to do that?
Well, my website's guilfordaccounting.co.uk. As Philippa mentioned, Guilford, no D in the middle, so Guilford,
only at the end.
D at the end, not in the middle. LinkedIn, I'm again LinkedIn/IN/Noel Guilford. It's where they can contact me, or my email's Noel@Guilford Accounting. And if I might just add, for the young lady who you mentioned who's starting a bookkeeping practice, she may be interested in a copy of my recent book, which is called Practice, which published earlier this year, which is it's about how to start an accountancy practice, but I wrote it as a story. And
that's her there.
So if Emma Louise would like a copy of my book, then she can email me and I'll be happy to forward a copy to her. If anybody else would like a copy, then it's available on Amazon. They can search for either the name Practice, or maybe better to search under my name, because Practice brings up a lot of different books. But and Emma Louise, if I can do anything to help you, then please get in touch.
That's fantastic.
Just glorious, Mel. And just to check, Practice is PRACICE.
PRACTICE.
CE. Excellent. That's how I would spell it as well. Excellent. Thank you for that. How can listeners find out more about you and Insight 101? Oh, before you say that, for the benefit of our listeners, we're going to do the same with Noel as we did with John last week. We're going to record an extra 10-minute piece afterwards where we'll ask Noel to talk about particular challenges that the practice faces and how he's addressing them now and into the future. And we'll record that, and that'll only be available through our Patreon feed, which will go live in the next few days, I hope. We'll tell everybody about that when it does. But Philippa, you now remembered to say that. How can listeners find out more about you and Insight 101?
Well done. So you can find me, like Noel, on LinkedIn, or on my website, www.insight101.co.uk. I help and support accountants and bookkeepers to stand out and basically create a unique story about themselves, so that they can differentiate themselves. The world is full of accountants, and AI is making things a lot more kind of level playing field. But the relationship part is still important, and that's where I come in. So if you're thinking about where you're going next, if you're worrying about AI and how you're going to be able to continue to make a difference, then let's have a chat. And Mark, tell us a little bit about how we can get in touch with you.
Online everywhere. I'm Bookmark Lee. My website, bookmarklee.co.uk. Even my business card is, of course, a bookmark. And I'm on LinkedIn, Mark Lee FCA, or find me, bookmark Lee there. And one thing I've learned from my work with accountants generally is that running your own practice isn't easy. Many feel quite isolated, particularly if they don't have the benefit of the type of background that Noel had when he started his practice. And indeed, many of my one-to-one mentoring clients either weren't in practice before they started their practice or have found it sort of lonely and isolating trying to move things ahead by themselves. So that's why they come to me, whether it's for better clients, fewer headaches, more profit. I'm always happy to chat, no strings attached. Some of the ad hoc conversations I have lead to regular one-to-one working. Some might decide to join my sole practice club. Indeed, that does happen. Or we might agree that just one chap's all you needed. Always happy to do that. In any event, I'd also encourage you to reach out, connect with both Philippa and me on LinkedIn, and do please follow the podcast pages on LinkedIn and on Facebook.
Yep, well, that's all we have time for today, sadly, on the live feed anyway. We shall be spending a bit more time with Noel and asking a few more questions. But anyway, our thanks again to the sponsors of the podcast, Pinnacle Global Group, your trusted outsourcing partner. Do check out their website and let their CEO, Mayank, know you heard about Pinnacle Global on the Accountant Success Secrets podcast.
And thanks too to the Tax Advice Network, the easiest way for accountants to reach specialist tax advisors. Remember, there's no charge for using the website, findataxadvisor.online, where you can also access the weekly tax tips written especially for general practitioner accountants.
So if you've enjoyed this episode, please share the love online, subscribe and leave a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify or YouTube. And of course, let us have your feedback too. It all helps to broaden the reach of the podcast. Please contact myself or Mark if you'd like to be interviewed on a future podcast. That would be wonderful.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Philippa. Thanks again to our wonderful guest, Noel Guilford. There'll be another episode of the Accountant Success Secrets next week when our next guest will be Kath Doherty. And before then, we're hoping to secure subscribers on Patreon. So we're going to stay online now, get a few further insights from Noel. And these will only be available to our Patreons, assuming we can make it work. But I think we will.
We can.
Other than that, until next week or anywhere else that we might meet online or in real life, bye-bye for now.
Bye.